Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's me coming to you from a hammock in my backyard. Now, why am I doing this? What does this have to do with homeostasis and transport? Absolutely nothing. It's a beautiful day in July. Sue me. Let's talk about the cell membrane. All right, so we are talking about homeostasis and cellular transport. Homeostasis and cellular transport, what are those things? And remember from the vocabulary, homeostasis, body staying balanced. If it's really hot outside, you sweat. Sweating gets the heat out of your body so you don't overheat. If you are sweating so much that you start losing salt, your body makes you urinate less so you don't get rid of as much salt. It's your body trying to fight all the things nature is doing to you. But we are going to be focusing this at the cellular level, not just things coming and going out of your body, but things coming and going out of your cells, which means they need to get through your cell membrane first. So let's talk about that cell membrane. This is a vocab word, fluid mosaic model. This is a description. Right? This describes what the cell membrane actually looks like. Fluid, you should probably know this, means it just flows. Like water or air, it's just going to flow. The cell's membrane is very loose and wobbly. And a mosaic. Those of you in art class already know what a mosaic is, or at least you should. Mosaic is when one thing is made up of a whole bunch of smaller things. Show you an example here. This is a picture of an old actress. You may not know her. It is Marilyn Monroe. But if we zoom in, you start seeing a whole bunch of smaller pictures. This is actually what emojis looked like back in the early 90s. But when we zoom back out, all those emojis start forming together and you see one big picture. And that is what your cell membrane is like too. You have all of these smaller molecules, and when they all get together, they form the cell's membrane. So your membrane is a mosaic, and because it's wobbly, it is fluid. Fluid mosaic. So what are these smaller pieces that it's made out of? It is made mostly out of one of your macromolecules we know as lipids. Specifically, a special kind of lipid called a phospholipid. The phospho comes from the fact that it has phosphates in it. That's all, not really that important, but it is called a phospholipid. And it is made of a whole bunch of these lipids, the circle and the two tails coming down. There's a whole bunch of them together, and there's another layer of them underneath upside down. So that is known as a bilayer. Bi means two. Phospholipid bilayer. It's also made out of another kind of macromolecule, proteins. These proteins all have jobs to do. Every protein has a job. That's what proteins are for. They're tools in your body. These are going to perform some kind of function. Depending which protein it is, depends what its job is. Mostly in your cells is going to be handling transportation of things in and out. Cholesterol is going to be handling flexibility, letting the cell be fluid. And carbohydrate chains actually have a really cool job. Carbohydrates, by the way, are another macromolecule, and these are like your cell's fingerprints. They are going to be allowing your cells to recognize each other so that your immune system doesn't destroy them. Your body knows it belongs. So let's talk about those lipids, since that's what makes up a majority of your cell's membrane. It is made up of two different pieces, the phosphate head and the fatty acid tails. And no, the phosphate head doesn't actually have eyeballs. I just thought it was cute. The phosphate head is what we know as hydrophilic. You may also hear it referred to as polar. Hydrophilic or polar both mean that it likes water. It gets along really well with water. Polar we'll talk about later on, but basically means it has a positive side and a negative side, and water has a positive side and negative side, so they get together really well like magnets. The fatty acid tail is what we know as hydrophobic. Meaning, if you ever know what a phobia is, it means you're afraid of something, you don't like it. And hydro means water. So water fearing. These tails do not like water at all. So if I were to add water in this room, those tails would run away and the heads would dive right in. And it would just float there like that, upside down. And that's what's going to happen. And the inside of your cells are filled with cytoplasm, which is water-based. So you have a bunch of heads facing in where the water is and a bunch of tails up here hiding. But the outside of your body, like outside the cell, is also made of water up here. So you have a bunch of heads pointing out and a bunch more tails facing in between hiding. That is what makes your cell's membrane take shape. The tails hiding in the center. That's very important. That's going to make other things happen as well. So the phospholipids are just for making the overall basic shape, but we have other things going on inside the membrane that's going to have other jobs as well. The proteins, these act like a doorway through the membrane. What we said in the vocabulary, sometimes some things are just too big to get through the membrane. They can't get in between. Really small things like oxygen molecules can just pass right in between, no problem. But some things like sugar or salt are just going to be way too big. And so they're going to need a special doorway from the slip through.
Hey guys, this is Future Laconi coming in. I was cooking in that hot July sun and I messed up. I forgot to tell you something. That those tails do not like anything with charges. So remember how it doesn't like water? And because the water has a positive side and a negative side, it doesn't like anything with a positive or a negative. And that's the reason why salt can't get through. Not because it's too big, but because when you dissolve salt, the sodium and chloride that make it up break apart into a positive sodium and a negative chlorine. And we call those ions, not atoms. So ions, things with charges, also cannot get through the cell membrane. So things that are too big need a protein, water needs a protein, and ions need a protein. Very important. All right, back to past Laconi.
Sometimes they require energy, sometimes they don't. This one does not require any energy. The door is just open. So these particles are just going to move in on their own. Your body used no energy. Sometimes the door is shut and you're going to have to use your own energy to open up the door. And we'll talk about why later. So what does the cell membrane do? That membrane's job is going to be to protect the cell. All right, like we said, some things can get in and some things can't get in. And we don't want certain things to get in. For instance, this green little blob here, we'll say represents a bacteria, something we don't want getting into your cells and eating your organelles. So that membrane is going to keep bouncing it back. Say, no, you shall not pass. And it's going to regulate the movement in and out of the cell, meaning some things we do want to get in, like that sugar from before, where we have a specialized protein door that's going to open up and just let it in. And that is it for the notes today. Nice and short. That was just the structure of the cell membrane. We are going to come back in the next video and talk about how things move, why things move, and we're going to talk about passive transport, and then another video on active transport. So go on Google Classroom, check if I left you any work to do, and I will see you in the next video.